Would somebody start the bidding at $750, please?
How do we know it's not a fake? It looks like a fake.
Well, one thing we know, you're no fake. You're a genuine idiot.
Thank you.
You're listening to League Podcast, the Director's Series. Hitchcock's North by Northwest. I'm Matt Durson.
And I'm Roger Thornhill. It's always been Roger Thornhill. I mean, John Hunt.
Hitch and Inferno here.
Oh, very good. Thanks to you guys for coming on. We're doing something a little different. It's still a movie. We're still just talking about movies, but this is a movie that most people consider a classic. It's a film, in fact. Yes.
It's like when you go to a restaurant and they're like, we do things a little bit differently around here. That's what we're doing tonight. We just do things. Have you podcasted with us before? We do things just a little bit different here.
That's right. This is a movie that most people consider a classic. It's one of the classics of all time, one of the greatest of all time. Hitchcock is, of course, one of our most famous and most well-respected directors. And, so we're not doing like some weird nerdy movie. We're doing a real film.
I think we've done a couple real movies here and there.
You're right. No, we have. I mean, when you consider some of the, Goldfinger or something like that, and we've done,
well, that's James Bond, but also, I didn't realize it, and we'll get there, of course, but this is almost a James Bond movie in a way.
Yeah, it's very James Bond.
Yeah, this is 1959, and Sir Alfred Hitchcock was filming Vertigo, and he was thinking about his next movie and what he was going to do next, and he was thinking about James Stewart to be the role which would eventually become Roger Thornhill, but he ended up with Cary Grant.
Well, Cary Grant and him had done three other movies together, and he kept trying to get Cary Grant to come back and for like Rope, which Jimmy Stewart ended up being in, and they apparently Cary Grant and Alfred Hitchcock had a long-standing friendship up until Hitchcock's death in 1980.
Yeah, so there was kind of a. Can you believe it?
And he's hiding with Elvis.
Right. There was kind of a thing, though, right, where he didn't want to tell Jimmy Stewart that he was not in it.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
There was some kind of because Jimmy Stewart was really anxious to play it, and he's like, so he just kind of delayed production of the movie until he knew Jimmy Stewart was working on Anatomy of a Murder.
Classic. Nice. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, and then he cast Cary Grant, but
and
he's like,
Cary
you
Grant,
can be in it.
And Cary Grant was never really, as close of friends they are, never really got the hang of what the movie was. He was like, I don't understand this script. I don't really know what's going on, really, but let's do it. Let's go.
Well, the script went through some changes, I think, throughout the process. Apparently, Alfred Hitchcock had some ideas about a person hiding in Lincoln's nose or whatever.
Yes, that's yeah.
And he would be found out because he sneezed in the nose, or I don't know.
They didn't do that.
Yeah, it sounded like a lot of it, I don't know. A lot of it got changed, and it sounds, and I don't know if this is true, but one of Hitchcock's biographies says that a lot of Hitchcock's ideas kind of got junked, and a lot of Ernest Lehman's ideas made it in. So, but hey, it's a collaborative process.
They were originally working on something else, a different movie together, and it just wasn't coming together, and they sort of just lost interest and dropped it. And Hitchcock was like, I want to do this in a movie and this and this and this, and put that in a script kind of thing.
Yeah, and he was kind of like, we'll think of something. Figure
it out.
But yeah, he apparently wanted to make the ultimate Hitchcock movie and just have things I want to see someone stabbed in the UN or whatever. He just wanted things to happen, and then they ended up they found this idea that an American journalist had. His name was Otis Guernsey, whatever, however you pronounce it. But he heard stories of this operation in World War II called Operation Mincemeat, where basically the British intelligence came up with a secret agent and they fed all this misinformation to the Germans to make them think that this was like a real guy. So and then like apparently Hitchcock paid this Otis Guernsey $10,000 for that.
It's
whatever his fucking name
is.
He paid him $10,000 for the idea. He said, okay, we're using it. That was it. So that's where the story comes from. So even though Cary Grant didn't know, he didn't have to. But it's an interesting story. I like how they used some real life stuff. They took some of Hitchcock's sort of pie in the sky ideas. And what do you like to say? Bob's your uncle?
Yeah, Bob's your uncle.
There's a
threw it in a blender and then poured it out into a nice big glass, and they had this big old good movie. At least in my opinion.
A big old good movie.
Yeah.
That's going to be your grade later on. This is a big old good movie.
Big old good movie.
And as Hitchcock does, as one does, and as Hitchcock does, he cast a pretty blonde lady.
Yeah.
Eva Marie Saint.
Yeah. She's still with us.
Yeah, that's right.
What's it, 90 something years old? Late 90s, right?
Holy that's crazy. Good for her. She is pretty. And apparently, like, when she was going out for the role, or like Hitchcock wanted to have dinner with her, and her mother said, he likes to cast ladies in beige outfits and white gloves. So that's what she wore to their dinner, and she ended up getting cast, and they think it was because of that. But
on July 4th, she will be 100 years old.
Wow. We should have had her on the podcast.
Yeah, her and Ron Friedman.
Let's. Do you want to start talking about the plot here? Do we have any?
Let's get
I want to start right at the very beginning as a visual artist guy. The credits: Saul Bass, award-winning.
I love these credits.
Oh my God, so good.
And I love the score.
Oh, and the score is so good. The credits are amazing. Saul Bass is he made like so many iconic logos, like the Westinghouse logo, IBM. And I have to say, before he died, I saw Saul Bass at my college in art school.
Oh wow!
That's cool. It was literally like the year before he died. And so a great opening scene here.
Yeah,
I think he did the opening credits to Hitchcock's Vertigo as well, which are also excellent.
Excellent. Yeah, I think Hitchcock liked using the same.
Yeah, probably.
Same people. So
I'm going to say about the score, which was Bernard Herrmann. I can hear, like, John Williams used to work for him, and so I can hear the influence of him on Williams in much of this score. But I mean, Bernard Herrmann did a shit ton of things. He did Scorsese's last film. Sorry. He did, his last film was with Scorsese, Taxi Driver, and he did, which explains why Scorsese used a lot of the score when he remade Cape Fear, because Bernard Herrmann did that. He did like the Twilight Zone theme and stuff. So he just was, he might have even done Psycho, which was the film following this for Hitchcock.
Very prolific, for sure.
Yeah, he was the John Williams of his day.
Okay, that's pretty good.
I think Williams used to like transcribe the music or the orchestra that he would compose, that Herrmann would compose. So. All right, now we can get into the plot.
Well, I want to say one more thing though before we get into it. It's like 2 minutes into the movie, we get our Alfred Hitchcock. Cameo.
That's my favorite one. This and
really?
To Catch a Thief are my two favorite Hitchcock cameos.
Well, he's like misses the bus or whatever.
Yeah, he just runs up and is like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
In To Catch a Thief, he it's another Cary Grant one, and they're in the back of a bus, and Cary Grant that's like just kind of on him, and he just sort of looks to the side in a weird way, and then the camera pulls back, and it's Alfred Hitchcock, I think with a bird in a cage, but it's a pretty good one.
He was a playful fellow. He liked to stick the. And what is that one where just the people are on the boat? The Hitchcock movie where whatever the whole movie takes place like they're on a boat, and like how's he gonna get himself on there unless he's sitting with these people? It's like a small boat, but like someone's looking. His pictures in the paper, something like that.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyways, we meet Cary Grant, Roger O. Thornhill.
Well, what's the O stand for?
I don't remember. What
He
did they
says
say?
nothing. He says
Nothing.
nothing.
Oh, okay. So he's dictating to his
Rot.
assistant, and he's a sales. He's an ad executive.
He's a
we
Don
find out.
Draper type.
Yeah, exactly. And I love it. The first thing we sort of find out about him, he steals a cab from a guy. Like he just takes the cab. I love it. He says, "Call my mother. I'll have 2 martinis."
Do I look as he's like bloated to you or something? He's like, do I look heavy? Or he's like, leave a note on my desk. Think thin.
Think thin.
Well, like you point out, Clay, people were a lot skinnier back then. They didn't have
that's
as
what,
much
like,
high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, going through all these classic movies, Mrs. Elder and I we just keep commenting about how thin everyone was back
I
then.
know. And they weren't like.
But also, there's another
buff.
thing.
Mm,
People
no.
did look. Let's see how old he was when he made this movie. People looked older though.
He was
You
in
know
his
what I mean?
50s.
What?
Oh,
No,
he
he
was.
doesn't look like he's in his 50s. I don't.
Cary
he looks-
Grant?
I don't know. Maybe. Do you think he
Yeah.
looks in his 50s? I don't think so.
No, I don't think he looks in his. He looks
Oh,
good.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
But I think
He
he's
looks
in
younger.
his. I think he's in his 50s when he did this.
Interesting. All right.
I'll look it up while we.
I would have, whatever. So he goes to the Oak Room, which is the famous restaurant there. And
Yeah, he was 55.
See?
How about that?
Yeah,
How about
yeah.
that? All right.
See, I
sure.
thought that he was like, it was maybe a little bit of ageism, but I thought that he was, how sometimes you see people in the 50s and you're like, wow, that guy must be like 65 years old and they're like 35.
Right.
I thought it was like that. But
Yeah, I know.
Cary
I
Grant
would've
looked
thought that
amazing
too.
till the day he died.
Yeah. So he meets.
He's dead too.
Yes.
Yeah, he died on my birthday.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
Oh, John.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
you
don't
killed him.
John me. I was 13 at the time.
So he's meeting with some guys. Oh, he wants to contact his mom, but she's not reachable. So there's this whole like kerfluffle about sending her a telegram and stuff. And the maitre d's looking for a guy named Kaplan. And these
but
two,
this is also very just Mad Men. Like he sits down. I just thought this whole movie is gorgeous. He walks into the Oak Room. There's these nice hand painted signs. He sits down. The 4 guys at the table, they all have martinis laid out right in front of them. And then he's like trying to get the porter, the whatever maitre d, like, I need you to send me a telegram. I'm not allowed to do that. But this whole movie just looks so gorgeous.
The whole thing is that the guy's calling for Roger Kaplan, and then he turns
Right.
around and he's like, "Hey, boy, over here!" And so
right. He just so
the
happens.
2 thugs.
Yeah, these
You
2
know.
guys in suits, they come up and they think Thornhill is Kaplan. And so like they stop him and they're like, come with us. And they put a gun in his back and they walk him out. And I love it. He says, "What is this, a joke or something?" And they say, "Yes, a joke. We will laugh in car." It's kind of weird. So they get in the car, they don't say a word, they just drive off. So they go to this Townsend estate. And they put him in this kind of room. It looks like it's like a study or a library or something. There's a lot of books on it. He says, "Oh, catch up on my reading." He's got a lot of really good lines.
Yeah,
It looks
he's
like
a
stately
throwing
Wayne
quips at-
Manor.
It
You know
does,
what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, he can get down to the Batcave if he moves one book or something. But I mean, like, James Bond has a lot of good lines, and like we said, this is like proto James Bond, but like he's got really good lines. Like the screenwriting is amazing.
Cary Grant was also the best man at Cubby Broccoli's second marriage and his wedding. And they were trying to get him to play Bond, but he would only agree to do one film. So they were like, we need someone for more than one film. We can't just do so. That's
Right.
They went after an unknown after that.
Hmm.
Anyway,
You hear
back
that,
to the
Lazen
story.
B? We need
Yeah,
someone
right.
for more
We
than
need
one
someone more
film.
than one. So anyway, Lester Townsend, James Mason comes in, and he is also with Leonard, played by Martin Landau.
Listen to our Ed Wood
So
episode.
listen to our Ed Wood episode. I like
I
Martin
love James Mason's voice where he, your acting is quite good. You should go to the actor's studio.
I know, he sounds like Dr. Claw or something. he's got. So they keep calling him Kaplan, and he's not. They don't believe him. He says he's not Kaplan and whatever. He says, "I'll show you my ID." They're like, that's fake. And then they list off a bunch of hotels that they know he stayed at, which comes into play,
including the Statler in Boston.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So it's like, will you cooperate? And he says a simple yes or no. And he says a simple no. I thought that was a good line too.
A simple no.
A
For
simple
the simple
no.
fact that I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. So he tries to run, and then they hold him down, and they take out this giant bottle of bourbon, and they pour a big glass, and they pour it down his mouth. And like, so in the next scene, he's like drunk and singing.
And they throw him. He's very red shirt Brian. The way he's acting.
I know he is kind of. I mean, he's acting drunk, but it's hard to act drunk. But so they're trying.
This is the part of the movie that I'm like. This is the one scene that I'm like, because it just goes on like way longer than it should.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little long. I mean, maybe they just thought that this is good shit. Let's just keep it going. But so they try to put him in the driver's seat of a car and drive him off a cliff as he's drunk, and so they could just say, he died of natural causes. And so he pushes the guy out and he starts driving on his own, but he's drunk, and he speeds past a cop, and the cop's chasing after him. And then there's like a cyclist. There's like a,
there should have been a mother. There should have been a mother with a carriage. There should have been two guys walking with plate glass window across.
Yeah, like maybe some fruit, watermelons.
In the classic rear projection driving to be used in James Bond many times.
And it looks just as crappy in all of those, because they do this in To Catch a Thief too. There's like an extended, like he's being driven by Grace Kelly, and there's extended like rear screen projection bad. Like
they do it in Psycho too. So, I mean, they did it in all of the movies.
But the funny thing is just hearing all the stock sound effects in there, because I could recognize the tire screeching from the Flintstones.
Those Foley guys, they only had so many.
And I have a knowledge drop too.
Oh,
here.
Please.
Cary Grant actually bought that 1959 Mercedes-Benz after.
Oh, no kidding!
After
that's
the
awesome.
movie. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Convoyable.
They arrest him because he
smashes into a cop car.
He smashes into a cop car. That's right. And then he says, "Somebody call the police." And he says it's assault with a gun and a bourbon in a sports car. I mean, I know it goes on a little long. I mean, drunk Cary Grant is pretty funny.
Oh, I mean, other than the bad rear screen, I like the rest of the scene. I'm just like, this part just goes on a little longer than I'd like. But yeah, when he gets taken in and stuff, and he has to call his mother, and he's like, "Mother, this is your son, Roger Thornhill."
I like
and he's like, what's the cop's name? It's like Emil something or other, and he's like, I didn't believe it either.
I like, so they have this doctor guy there, and he tries to explain to him. The guy says, "How much you been drinking?" And he says, "About this much." And he holds his hands like a bro.
Then he gets up to like lay on the table.
And he kind of just lies on the table. And his lawyer is trying to explain the whole thing.
His lawyer is Maxwell Smart's boss on Get Smart.
Oh, all right. There you go. I didn't recognize that. It's like, no, they think he's this guy, Kaplan, blah, blah, blah. So like they go back to the Townsend.
Well, I want to add something in here. His mother is with him at this point.
Yes,
and
that's right.
His mother was also in To Catch a Thief with him, where she played someone the same age. There was only like 3 years difference between them. I think that's always great when someone looks so old despite the fact they're the same age, that you're like my mother. But she's she makes things worse, where she's always just like, just like adding little comments and just like little noises and things like that like seem to be poking holes in his story almost.
I know. It's another one of my favorite lines. So they go back to the Townsend estate, and everything is different. And like Mrs. Townsend like lets them in, the cops and everything, and he goes into that same room, and he where the liquor cabinet was is just books. And his mother says, I remember when it came in bottles.
Yeah.
That's kind of a funny line.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so they obviously changed everything, which kind of doesn't make sense if they think that, whatever, who cares? So anyways.
So the ruse, they sent in the cleaners. It's kind of like they're fucking with his head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And meanwhile,
go listen to our Moonraker podcast where they do that.
So Mrs. Townsend, she pretends that she knows it, and she says, "Oh, he was here and he was drinking last night." And then they said something about that, like Townsend is not here; he's at the UN.
I like his reaction. He's like, "So he's at the UN or whatever."
Yeah.
He's addressing the assembly.
So the thing that I thought was really funny, I think they say just pay the $2.
Yeah,
I'm like, $2? That's the fine for being drunk and hitting a cop? $2?
Well, $2 was like 4,000 back then.
It wasn't that long ago. I don't think it was. Anyway, so he and his mother go to his hotel and they're looking for George Kaplan. And he tells his mother
He bribes her.
Yeah.
Really? Pays her off to go up to the desk and get the key.
Yeah. And so he goes in and he's snooping around. He asks the housekeeper if she knows who he is. And there's like, it's this running gag when they go in. There's like dandruff shampoo and stuff. It's like he makes a couple jokes about Kaplan having dandruff. It's kind of funny.
He says dandruff. He says it weird. Dandruff.
So he takes this photo that has Townsend in it, and so he can kind of. But no one has ever actually seen this guy Kaplan. But he checked out and whatever, and so
then a guy comes up with the suit that had been pressed and cleaned, and it's several sizes too small. So
he's like he's a little guy with dandruff or whatever he makes him. So then he gets a phone call in the room, and it's from like one of the kidnapper guys, and so then Roger calls down to the. I love like back in the day, you could just get all this information no matter what it was. It's like there was no privacy. It's just like he's just like, hey, who just called here? And he says it came from the lobby. They're riding down the elevator. This is kind of a weird scene. There's a bunch of people in the elevator, and the mother says, "Are they really trying to kill you?" And everyone just starts laughing. It's kind of weird. I don't even really remember. When he lets the ladies out, he's like, "Oh, we'll let the ladies out first." And then he just runs. Roger just takes
That's
off.
a good thing. Good thing they didn't kidnap his mother.
Yeah, what does he care? I guess.
She's like, "Are you going to be home for dinner?"
So he steals another person's cab because I guess we know he's good at that. And he says, "Take me to the UN." And he tells the cabbie he's being followed. Can you do anything about it?
And the guy says, "Yeah, I thought the guy was going to be in on it."
I was like, that's pretty crazy.
That one doesn't go anywhere.
I think I'm going to try that in the next Uber.
Yeah.
Next Uber ride.
There's someone following me. Yeah.
Finally, can you do anything about it? He'd probably be like, yeah, let me get my gun out here. Anyway, so they go to the UN, and he pages Lester Townsend, but it's a different guy. Different Lester Townsend.
I also want to point out that they didn't have permission to film at the UN. So they sort of just set up a camera in a van across the street and told Cary Grant to go run up the stairs.
Yeah, because once you're inside, it doesn't matter.
They couldn't film inside either. That's why there are so many matte paintings. So this guy, this different Lester Townsend, gets a knife thrown into his back. It's really hard to tell. Like if you're just watching the movie and seeing like it's kind of just like you can see it.
I know, but it's like a split second.
I was like, wow, they actually went through the effort to make that do that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then like you see a guy in the shadows like take off, and Roger kind of like helps the guy. Yeah, the guy is falling to the ground with a knife in his back, and Roger pulls the knife out. And he's holding it in his hand, and it's bloody, and all these reporters are taking pictures of him. Because they think he stabbed the guy. So then he runs off again.
In another matte painting.
Matte painting. And
then he's in the paper. He's on the front page, murder at the UN or whatever. But because he gave the name Kaplan, they're looking for a guy named Kaplan. It's just, this is all because that one guy in the restaurant thought he was Kaplan or whatever.
The wrong man.
Yeah. So now we get introduced to this weird government group, the professors, they call this guy, and a little bit gets explained. Actually, a lot gets explained, but they don't say what group. Later on, he says, "Oh, we're all part of the same alphabet soup." But I like how they show you that they're in Washington because they put the Capitol in the background.
It's just like when you're in Paris, the Eiffel Tower is always in the background.
Right. So this whole thing, they created this fake guy. There
Or
is
London.
no, or London. Yep, they'll put like the
Ah.
Big Ben or something. Or right, if you're
No.
in GI Joe.
If you're
I
in
see what you're
G.I.
saying.
Joe, yeah.
Yeah. So there is no George Kaplan. It's all made up. It's a farce.
Yes.
But they're like, so this guy's gonna take the fall for us, and he's like, hey, we can't endanger the mission.
Yeah, they're like, what if he gets killed? And they're like, he's like, well, that's his problem, you know?
I know.
Right.
So
It
he's
sucks to be him.
yeah. Oh well. But their mission. So, anyways, because Roger heard him say that he went to Chicago, he hops the train to Chicago. And he's calling his mom just to explain all this. So we get some exposition, really. But it's also a nice way to have his mom in it. And she's not actually in it. He's just talking to her on the phone that he's getting on a train to Chicago. And he kind of sneaks
From,
on the
Grand
train.
Central Station, and it looks gorgeous in there. And they shot this,
It
and
does.
then he goes up and he buys a ticket to Chicago.
Yeah,
And
the
then
guy-
the ticket
guy-
taker, like,
The ticket taker is also in Suspicion with Cary Grant, with a much bigger
Oh.
role, and he was partnered with the guy that plays Leslie Nielsen's partner in the Naked Gun movies, and I can't remember what his name is. George.
Kennedy.
Yeah, and James Coburn.
Oh, very good.
oh, the Coburn Files coming
Yeah.
soon.
That's right.
But
So
but the ticket taker rats him out.
Yeah, well, he's like,
let me,
are you in a?
go check to see if they got another ticket
Yeah.
there.
He's wearing sunglasses this whole time, and
Right.
he's like, what, is something wrong with your eyes? And he's like, they're sensitive to questions.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
That is a good one.
And Oliver Peoples, a sunglasses manufacturer, worked with the Cary Grant's estate to recreate those glasses. I
Oh,
found
wow.
out. So
That is very cool. So he sneaks on the train, and the cops are coming for him, and he bumps into Eva Marie Saint in the hallway. And it's kind of like, oh, hello, yeah. And so she tells the cops that, like, he went that way.
7 parking tickets.
Yeah, she's like, what are they looking for you for? He says, 7 parking tickets. They part ways for a little while, but then he goes to the dinner car and they seat him with her. And then they flirt. Now, I know, like, back then, it was a lot less overt, right? Like, you would just be like, hey, lady, I want to be on you, or whatever.
They're almost coming out and saying that.
They're pretty.
In the script,
yeah.
actually, I saw the screenwriter talking. He said in the script, when she says, I never travel on an empty stomach or something, in the script it actually said, I never make love on an empty stomach.
Oh.
But they had to change it, obviously.
Yeah, I like her line of that she's not terribly invested in the book she's reading or something like that.
Right. So she tipped the guy $5 to seat him with her. So I think this kind of flirting is way more fun. I mean, I know I don't want to sound like, oh, it was better back in the old days or whatever, but it's way more fun dialogue now. You know what I mean? Like, we just know they don't even really speak; they just go right to the sex.
Yes.
But like, this is like way more fun. Yeah, I love sexual tension in old movies. It's just wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But she knows who he is.
I watched a thing with Eva Marie Saint about the making of, and she said much the same thing you're saying, Durson. She's like, nowadays they just show everything, but in this time, it was.
She suddenly became Catherine Hepburn.
yeah, but she was just like, she's like, it's just better when they leave it to the imagination and stuff. Like, she's like, oh, I had to do, and she was like kidding around. She's like, I had to do take after take, and it was such a grueling day kissing Cary Grant, take after take,
So yeah, she tells him where her room is, and then the train stops, and the cops get on, and they're looking for him, and so they lock him in her room has like one of a bunk bed kind of thing, I guess. I don't know what you describe it as, like a well, I guess it's like just a
like
bed.
a sleeper bed.
Yeah,
It's
right,
like a
right.
Murphy bed almost in the train car. That in that model, like the porter has to come in with this special key to undo it. It's not like you can just like pull it down yourself. Like you need to have the porter come in and turn the key, and he's hiding up there, and that's when they come in. They're like, "Hey, have you seen this guy? We saw you talking to him in the dining room. I don't know who he is."
Yeah, he just sat there. I don't know anything about him. And she plays like the sort of like woman who doesn't know. And she's like, I don't know. Was he a bad man or whatever? So meanwhile, the porter comes to the room and, Roger hides in the bathroom. There's this, whatever. We don't know. Something went on there. We only find out later. But the guy leaves and then they make out a little again. But the porter brings her message to another room, and it's Martin Landau and James Mason in there. And the message says, "What do I do with him in the morning?"
Yeah,
so that was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they arrive in Chicago, and
apparently this train ride is like 20 hours long.
Really? Is that how long it really takes? Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what did they do?
This line still runs to this day.
Huh.
Faster scenic route is 20 hours rather than the shorter but more direct route, which has numerous stops.
Ah, interesting. So they did spend some time together.
Oh yeah.
So they get to Chicago, and Roger is dressed up as like a luggage guy with like the hat on and everything and the uniform because there's cops all around. So Eva Marie Saint, Eve Kendall, I guess we should call her, or whatever. But she says, "I'll call Kaplan." So
I'm wearing one of those outfits right now.
The Eva Marie Saint one?
Ooh, no, like to look sexy.
A jumpsuit that.
Let's all talk sexy with Clay now.
Yeah.
Innuendos for the rest of the
we like
show.
Sexual tension. So, and meanwhile, of course, Martin Landau, Leonard, and Townsend are there. So the real luggage guy is there, and he got paid off by Roger to tell them like the other way or whatever. And like there's like everybody who has that red hat, they're just hassling them all. It's kind of funny. So this is kind of funny too. He goes in the men's room to shave. Guys, and they're shaving back then. It was a real thing. But he only has like her tiny little
huge
razor.
Beard wasn't a thing then.
Yeah.
Like now. Yeah, I didn't.
I didn't really get that.
I didn't get the joke either, but that might be just maybe that was a popular thing at the time.
I think
maybe
it was
travel
because,
razors.
He grabbed that razor when he was in her bathroom. And he was like, "Look at how small this is."
Yeah.
And then it's just a macho thing. Like he's at the train station shaving, which is like, can you imagine being in South Station and shaving in there? But he's like, he's shaving, and the guy is next to him. It's like, look at this guy with his little sissy blue boots, tiny. I think that's all it is.
Yeah, it's funny. I figured it was
like small razor, big face.
That's right, exactly. So she tells him, just get on the bus, go to this stop, meet Kaplan there. It's all very suspicious. She's being very suspicious. And he wants, meanwhile, he wants to see her again, of course. And she's like, well, okay.
It could happen, maybe. We might run into each other at some point. Okay, bye.
Yeah. So he takes this bus. He gets off way out in the middle of nowhere. And there's all these cars driving by. And this one guy gets dropped off. And, kind of like, and he thinks it might be him or whatever. And he crosses the street. But there's a crop. The guy does also notice there's a crop duster that ain't dusting no crops.
Yeah. That crop.
And this is obviously like the most famous scene of the movie. It's parodied a million times. But Hitch, is I like to call him.
Hitch. Yeah, you and him are buds.
You're tight.
His idea was to do the opposite of cramped guy being chased in an alley, dark city, cramped, a lot of people around, lots of traffic. He's like, what if you reverse that and had someone being chased down in the big wide open? So that was like kind of his brain puzzle that he tried to figure out this amazing scene that we're
I would also like
It
to
is.
point out that this is supposed to be outside of Chicago, but they filmed it in California. So there is another matte painting in that establishing shot because you could see, you know, mountains and the city and stuff back there that they used the painting to make it really look like you're out in the middle of nowhere. And I also like the fact that he goes over and asks if he's Kaplan, and he's like, can't say I am because that's not my name or something like that.
Yeah, it's like really weird.
can't say much that I do around here.
Yeah. Superman.
They're dusting crops where there ain't no crops, by the way.
Hey, for dusting crops, boy.
To add to what you were saying, John, about where they were filming it in California, when they were there, they were filming it in McFarland, California. They were filming the scene and all that. And then they found out that the bar closed in that particular town at 10:30 each night. So they moved it to Bakersfield.
So they could drink after? Is that...
Yes, that's right. It's very important back then. Now.
I don't blame them.
Can't say that I don't know. Do.
I ain't no Kaplan now.
Can't say that now. No, do.
Do.
Thanks
Sorry,
to you.
so the crop
Thanks
duster...
to you. I'll be getting on the bus now. Thanks, sir.
Yeah. Yes, he does. He gets on the bus and leaves. So, yeah, Roger's there all alone. The crop duster, quote unquote, flies at him and starts shooting at him. And he runs into the corn to try to hide. But, yeah, it's a tense scene. Like, the plane does a couple of, loops. And so, meanwhile, the real crop duster comes. And then there's this gas truck coming along. Like, Roger runs out to stop the gas truck, and it almost runs over.
Are you saying there's two crop dusters?
Yeah, I didn't notice that either.
I guess that may be a mistake. I did a mistake.
I think it's just one plane.
Yeah, the bad plane. So he's driving.
What are you doing here? I'm already crop dusting here.
You're crop dusting where there ain't no crops.
I made that mistake. I'm sorry. My notes are a little confusing here. So anyway, he runs out to the street.
Drinking.
Yeah, I had bourbon. So he tries to stop the truck, and he has to duck under it. And then the plane crashes right into it. It's like a big gas truck with two tanks.
In a review I had watched where they're like, oh, and that's an obvious miniature right there. I was like, actually, I thought that was pretty good miniature. I didn't know that until you said it was an obvious miniature.
Yeah, obvious miniature.
That's true. I saw that same one, and I was pretty surprised. And then there's some skeptical people that don't think that the storyboards were made until after the movie for publicity. But if you look at the storyboards for this, they have got it all worked out, and they've got all the angles at which the crop duster is going down and shooting the guy. But the drawings look really cool, like awesome comic book panels. If you ever look it up.
Yes, I saw those as well. Yeah,
they look really cool.
Very nice.
Whereas Hitchcock literally draws a smiley face on a figure and a plane, a very simple plane in the background, but he gives it to his production guy, and he draws this really good thing. And then even the expressions on the cartoons are almost screen accurate. It's really cool.
So yeah, after the plane crashed and it's kind of on fire, and
into the oil tanker truck.
Yeah, so they're but some cars stop to rubberneck.
They gather around to see what's going on.
And so he jumps in a pickup truck and he's out of there.
And it's funny, the pickup truck has a refrigerator on the back of it or something.
Kind of weird. So he goes back to Chicago. He goes to the Ambassador this time, the Ambassador East Hotel, and he finds out, oh, Mr. Kaplan checked out. But he sees Eve in the lobby. And again, he just oh, what room is she in?
Well, because you could see she gets off at the 4th floor because he's looking at the elevator and seeing where it stops. And then he's like, oh, I'm meeting Eve Kendall. She's on the 4th floor, room 4, whatever.
Yeah. So I guess he does. Yeah, he gives some information, enough, I guess.
And he's kind of oh, I forget which room she's in. And they're just
it's
405.
Something. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you couldn't do that now.
No, probably not. But anyway, he goes up and she acts all coy, and she's like, please leave. And he's like, well, why don't I stay for dinner? And she's like, well, all right, but your suit is kind of gross. So we'll have it pressed.
Gonna have the porter sponge it.
Yeah,
Sponge
sponge.
and press it, and that'll take
I
20
was like-
minutes. I was like,
Yeah.
How many times do you have to have something sponged? And then I was thinking that actually does solve the problem. If you have a dusty suit, you probably sponge it. But how many times did that ask for?
I don't know. I
well,
guess-
back in the day, everybody was
sponge and
wearing
press?
suits, so maybe it was a service that was more readily available than it
I
would
guess
be now.
so. Yeah. It's
I'm gonna
true.
call up my lady and say, "Can you do a quick sponge and press?"
Sponge.
20
Take
minutes.
More
You
than
gotta
20
do
What?
20
minutes.
minutes.
And I'll
Yeah.
just hang up like a prank call, and then I'll laugh. I just called her for a sponge and press.
So meanwhile, he said, or he's going to take a shower and they're going to go to dinner while the suit is getting sponged and pressed. So then, like, she gets a phone call. She writes down something on a piece of paper. He's in the shower. The water's running, but he's not actually in the shower. He's like kind of
Just
like
he has
listening.
his shirt on and his boxer.
Yeah, he's in his underwear.
Underpants.
Underwear. Yeah, it's kind of very interesting. But so she sneaks out, and then he comes out and he does the pencil trick.
Yeah, the thing that always works in the movies, but if you try it in real life, you might get a letter or two, and that'd be it. You know?
She really pressed down hard on that.
Yeah, she was just very intense.
Because he
Right.
gets
Now
like a
this-
perfect
Yeah.
rubbing.
I would say a perfect rubbing, huh?
Yeah.
I would say
Hey.
that this movie is like definitely one of the most analyzed movies ever. And one of the things I saw was like, if you see when he's doing the pencil trick, he's going left to right, but the cut insert when they
Yeah,
close
movie
up on the
nerds.
thing goes up and down, up and down.
Oh boy.
Like easy.
Right. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Except I felt the need to share it with you.
Well,
Thank you.
I mean, it is interesting, I guess. Now that you mention it, but that other guy, forget it.
Stupid
Yeah.
idiot.
It was good when you said it, but when that guy said it, yeah, what a jerk.
But every
So
frame of
anyways.
this movie has been analyzed to death.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. So, anyways, the rubbing on the paper is an address, so he goes to that address.
Now, I just like to say something here. I
Please.
know that the crop dusting scene is the iconic scene that everybody talks about, but this is actually my favorite scene of the movie. This one. with
The auction. The auction.
Yeah, I
It
really
is
like
pretty
this.
hilarious. This
Yeah.
scene is really funny and very inventive. So yeah, meanwhile, and so Townsend and Leonard and Eve are there, and Eve, Townsend is rubbing her neck. It's kind of very familiar. And I did want to point out to you, Clay, that the auctioneer says this lot is in excellent condition, which is something
Oh,
I
excellent.
use on all of my eBay auctions.
Nice.
It's my go-to. Maybe
Yeah,
I got
same
it
here.
from this. Maybe I did without knowing, like without,
Yeah.
maybe subconsciously. So anyway, he goes over and he confronts them, and Martin Landau is, he says, he was in your room, and Cary Grant says, isn't everybody?
Yeah.
He's pissed at her. You know,
He's
thought
not
they
holding
had
back,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. She tries to smack him, and he says, who are you kidding? You have no feelings to hurt. So he says he's going to go to the police for trying to kill him. And meanwhile, there's henchmen guarding the door and everything. So, yeah. So Roger,
Well, there's the Townsend. He hasn't found out what his real name is yet, right?
no, they
Oh, he does. He finds out here. He finds out his
Right.
name's Van Damme.
Yeah.
And they're
Townsend is Billy
bidding
Van
on
Damme.
like this little statue thing.
Right. But I love the way Roger squishes next to this lady in the seat at the auction. She's
Yeah.
like, he just like squishes it right next to her. And anyway, so he bids on something lower than what the price was. And the guy's like, the auctioneer is kind of like,
He's like $13.
yeah.
He's
He's
like, it's
$13.
whatever. And he's like, well, that's all it's worth, $13.
Yeah. He's like, how do I know it's not fake? It looks like a fake.
Yeah, he's just causing a scene.
Yeah.
And the woman's like, yeah, well, you're no fake. You're a genuine idiot.
Yeah.
And he's like,
That was-
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So then we get the old guy, the professor. He's also there, just observing all this. But meanwhile, so Roger creates enough of a disturbance by keep on bidding down And then one time he goes way up, right? Does he get like $1 million?
They don't take him seriously
Yeah.
at this point. And even the auctioneer is like, wait, what were we at again?
And the guy comes over to like take him out. He punches him. And then like, they're like, oh, the old guy makes like a phone call meanwhile. But meanwhile, they reckon he's the United Nations killer. Or at least I think Roger says that himself, right? Or whatever.
Yeah, when the cops take him away, he's like, you scored big. You got the United Nations killed. There's also a slight little movie flub here when they're going around a corner. Cary Grant starts to lean, but the cop sitting in the back seat with him doesn't, and he kind of nudges him to like, oh, lean. We're taking a turn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because they're not turning; they're just in front of
rear screen again.
So yeah, when the cop calls it in, and they say, "Yep, take him to the airport," he's like, "No, I want to be taken to police HQ." And they're like, "Nope, taken to the airport." So they go to the Northwest Airlines, which I thought was a nice thing. The old guy, the professor, comes in. He says, "All right," and he takes him away. And they just let him. I don't know. I mean, like, don't you think they'd be like,
Well, he flashes. He shows him his badge, or like back then, that's what you could do.
Right. That's all you did.
Yeah.
That's all you had to do. I watched Airplane recently, and the Homeland Security in that movie is pretty much non-existent. I mean, I know it's like a funny movie anyways, but it's just like people are smoking and they're just like running onto the plane at the last minute and stuff.
Women are walking through the thing and their boobs are showing.
Sniffing, sniffing glue.
I have to tell this joke because it was so funny when I saw it. It's like these two guys. It's like, okay, make sure you feed the cat, and yeah, okay, and make sure you take care of this business transaction and stuff. Okay. Then they kiss because they're like a gay couple. But like in 1980 when that movie came out, it was like all shocking. Ooh. But I was like, wow. I was like, that was supposed to be like a huge joke. And I was like, look at how far we've come. That actually is happening. They do want him to feed the cat. He's going to be in trouble if he doesn't, what he gets up. We've come a long way since Airplane.
That's true. All right. So the professor explains that there is no George Kaplan, but they still need him to go to Mount Rushmore to find Van Damme, formerly Townsend. You're going to pretend that you're Kaplan for a little while just so that, we got to figure this out because Ms. Kendall, she works for them too. And so she's in
the inside man. The inside man is a woman.
A woman?
Woman. She's an agent.
So Van Damme is leaving the country, so they just kind of have to just make sure it's all on the up and up. I kind of lost a little bit of what do they want him to leave or do they not want him to leave?
Because they were going to track him back to who he was going to or something like
that. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, and his Cary Grant dialogue, Thornhill, he's just saying he's saying the most hilarious thing when he's shutting the stuff down. He's like, I've got 2 ex-wives, a mother, and several bartenders that are dependent on me. I can't just
he said, and I don't want to disappoint them by getting slightly killed or something like
that. I don't want to disappoint them getting slightly killed.
Yeah. So he has a sit down with Van Damme, and he's like, all right, I'll make you.
Well, they meet but first they go to Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, because he's Van Damme has a place near there. They say.
Yeah, and he's looking at Mount Rushmore, and he's like, I don't like the way Teddy Roosevelt is looking at me. And I was wondering if this was a reference to Arsenic and Old Lace, which Cary Grant was in, and which his brother is crazy and thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt. I don't know if that is the case, but
seems like it might be. So he wants to exchange Eve for not telling everyone that he knows where Van Damme is going and when he's leaving and he has all that information, he says. But he says, if you leave Eve here, I won't tell anyone. But he supposedly wants her for revenge. He doesn't want her because he's in love with her. He tries to take her away and there's a scuffle and then she shoots him.
Yeah, also, look in the background. You can see one of the little kid that's an extra sitting down is like covering his ears.
He covers his ears before because he knows it's coming.
Yeah, because I guess they shot a bunch that day. And then Eva Marie Saint, she said that why that was the take they choose to put in the movie. Well, I guess we'll never know. Which I guess you could say too about Hitchcock is it's everything is so perfect, and he leaves imperfections in. It's a kind of a strange dichotomy, like the nudging.
Yeah, I
weird.
think that sometimes he sort of likes to break the illusion here and there, where it's like, I almost think he sort of likes when something is a little stylized and a little off at the same time, as well as being a control freak. It's sort of, a contradiction in a way.
Yeah, I like that contradiction. If it's like a mistake that's intentionally left in on purpose, that's kind of cool. That's 3D chess, man.
Well,
that's very Bob Ross.
He goes against the conventions a lot. I feel like there was a lot of stuff in Rear Window, which maybe we'll get to.
I just got that on Blu-ray the other day.
Oh, nice. People look directly at the camera a lot, which it never happens. You know what I mean? Like in movies, it never happens. Like nobody ever does that because it's too jarring, for the audience, especially if you're looking at it on a giant screen and someone's just staring at you. It's kind of weird. You know what I mean? But that was part of the idea of the movie. Like you're watching this happen. Like he was acknowledging the audience, basically. Just like Jimmy Stewart is watching all this happen, you are watching all this happen. You're all voyeurs, so it's kind of cool. We'll get there.
What about Deadpool? What about Ferris Bueller, right? Which came first?
Deadpool, definitely.
Oh,
anyway, so she shot him. And then the old guy, the professor, comes along and he's like, oh, and they take him away. And they drive him out in like the woods, which is kind of weird, in like one of those park ranger cars. And Eve is out there, and it was all a farce. Another farce. It was blanks. She was shooting blanks.
That's right.
She compliments his acting. It's kind of nice. And, it's not really his forte. But they have a nice chat. They kiss. But she's got to go back to Van Damme.
Which is a surprise to him.
Yeah.
That she's actually going on the plane.
Yeah, she's leaving with him. And like he's like, what? They didn't tell me that. Like he's like, no, that you can't. And then this guy comes and just punches him out again. This guy just knocks him out.
Mr. Ranger.
Yeah, park ranger guy, or I guess probably that's just his disguise. I'm sure he's in one of the alphabet soup things, but
I'm sure.
He wakes up in like it looks kind of like a hospital room kind of thing or whatever, and he's in a towel. I expected him to say, you'll have to speak up. I'm only wearing a towel.
He's pretty good shape for 50. What was he? 5, 6?
55.
Yeah, he looks pretty good. The prof brings him some clothes. They're like, yeah. He's like, oh, well, you understand. Yeah, hey, no hard feelings, all that. He's like,
you're going to be here for a couple of days. You should have it.
Right.
Give me a drink.
Yeah, he's like, bourbon. I could use a drink. Yeah, use a bourbon. The guy leaves.
And isn't this when he goes through that lady's room?
Yeah.
And she's like,
yeah.
Stop.
It's weird. Yeah, like
she's like, stop. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, stop.
No, stop.
Yeah. So he goes to Van Damme's place. He goes and finds Van Damme's house. He's going to rescue Eve.
Nice place, by the way.
Yeah. As we find out later, I was going to mention this later, but I'll just say it now. It's obviously very close to Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, it didn't.
It's a little.
It's just like over the hill, and there it is.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's listening in outside, and Martin Landau, Leonard, is trying to explain.
Yeah. This whole thing here is the subtext is that Martin Landau is gay, which is why he is. Because they he's like, call it women's intuition, and then James Mason is like, you're jealous. I'm touched, really. That's as far as you could go back in the day.
Right.
Yeah, it caused some problems with the rating, or I don't know if pre-code or whatever, but it said that some of the problems when it came up the code was how effeminate Leonard was.
Interesting.
Caused some problems.
Well, he's trying to convince him, but he knows that the gun wasn't real, that she didn't really shoot Roger and all that, and meanwhile, and like he
goes to shoot him.
Yeah, he goes to shoot
Van Damme, and he's okay. And then,
like, oh.
And Eve is like, "What was that noise?" And he's like, "We were wondering that too. It's almost time to go." I was like, "Wow, that's the best lie you could possibly come up with, right?"
Yeah, we don't know.
I don't know.
We also find out through the course of their conversation that the statue that they won at the auction has microfilm inside it. So this isn't just like this actual international intrigue here. It's really weird though. Like
Cold War shit.
Yeah.
It's funny to watch. I was watching some movie reactions by younger people than us, and they have no idea what microfilm is, and that just makes me feel old.
I guess, yeah, they wouldn't.
I think I remember actually even going to the library in North Dakota, which is
not that far from
not
Mount
that far,
Rushmore.
right. Yeah.
Just in South Dakota.
Just take West Street.
Yeah, to take West Street, it's not that long, and then you got there. But I actually remember going to the library and using the microfilm machine that they use in like movies where people are looking up old newspapers. I remember doing that at least once.
Oh, I did that a lot actually in my days of doing research papers, for school and stuff. But yeah, so
different time.
Sorry, kids. We didn't have Google. The whole thing is like he wants to. He's going to take Eve up there and throw her off the plane. Essentially, he's like she from great height or something like that. He said something evil. I don't know.
Yeah, it does this camera move where it goes above them, and I thought that was a nice little touch.
Yes. So meanwhile, Roger climbs in the house and he finds in his pocket, because he cut his hand while he was climbing up, and he takes out his handkerchief. It's got his initials on it. He remembers he has a matchbook with his initials on it, and he writes a little note in there to say,
nice handwriting.
Beautiful.
Cursive.
Yes, it is.
The kids probably can't even read that.
Yeah. He tries to throw it to her, but she's sitting with them, and Leonard comes over and finds it. He just drops it in the ashtray. He doesn't care. But
yeah, he's like, but there's a little bit of tension. It's like, wait, what is this? But matches probably all over the floor. Everybody's smoking. There's all these cigarettes it's like in a tray. There's like 20 cigarettes like laid out just for anyone to have one. And he's like, oh, someone must have dropped these matches. It throws them in the thing.
So then she sees that it has his initials on it, and she's like, oh, I gotta go back to my room and get my earrings. And then Roger's in there because he wrote on it, I'm in your room.
Just like the Baroness, typical Baroness type maneuver.
Yeah.
Oh, my earrings.
Yeah. But she's like, she still goes with him because I guess it's like, not to arouse suspicion. So then Roger is kind of trying to navigate around on like the balcony kind of thing, and Mrs. Townsend again, or the wife.
It's the housekeeper or something.
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, it wasn't clear to me, but I guess you're right. But she sees his reflection in the TV.
In the TV.
So that was kind of cool. And then she holds him at gunpoint.
I noticed that TV in the scene before. I was like going like, oh, that's like kind of a big TV for back then, and I was like thinking. I thought all this stuff about the TV before that reveal of him being in the reflection of it. I was like really focused on it, like whatever it was. I was like started thinking about the TV, and I was like, how come the TV isn't on? But like people didn't just have the TV on all the time. You know what I mean? It was like a special thing
because there wasn't stuff on all the time.
Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, but that was like something about that shot made me start thinking about the TV, and then like later I was like, oh, they are doing that reflection thing.
Yeah
Chekhov's TV.
Exactly. So she's got the gun on him. They're about to get on the plane, and they hear shots, and it was the same blank gun. Like Roger comes running out, and meanwhile Eve grabs the statue and starts running, and then like they get in the car. Do they even get in the car, or do they just run? I
can't remember.
But they're literally right on top of Mount Rushmore, like a second later. They are on the top of the mountain. I've never been to Mount Rushmore. Can you even go on top of it?
No, I don't think so.
Well, they wouldn't let them, the Department of the Interior would not let them film this. So there is a gigantic matte painting that they used, when he was looking through the binoculars. Right. That's actually like a matte painting that's like 50 feet high.
Wow.
It's really detailed.
Yeah, it's pretty
Beautiful.
impressive to see the behind the scenes stuff, because some of it is, giant, like here's part of Abraham Lincoln's face, and here's the background of George Washington, and here's
Yeah,
William
so-
Shatner's face on the
Yeah, the set, like they had to build that stuff as a set, but the one that I was talking about, like when the anything that was in the background, like when in the cafeteria.
It's really like a scenic painting, right? Rather
yeah,
than
it's
matte
like
painting.
a really detailed scenic painting that had to look real. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I
think
was
you
wondering
knew back
before I saw the behind the scenes stuff. I was wondering how they had done it, because it looked really good.
It is interesting. Yeah, like back then, they didn't just have CGI, but they put a lot of time.
Yeah,
into
and
this
Hitchcock
shit.
is the master, and his team. You know what I mean? He had the best of the best.
Yeah, he did. So they decide anyway to climb down the face of Mount Rushmore. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Can't you just go somewhere? Whatever. But they're
Run
being
to the
chased.
left instead. Circle back around.
Yeah, I don't know. There's got to be a better way. But anyway, they're being chased by Leonard and Van Damme, and Van Damme catches him, and Roger start kind of rolling around, and he's about to stab Roger, and Roger kind of easily just throws him off the cliff, like just kind of chucks him off without a lot of effort. So I don't know. I feel like James Mason didn't put up a huge fight there. Yeah, but
Well, James Mason lives though.
well, still, but I mean, he's no longer a threat. Like he falls off the mountain. James Mason lives. But did the other guy live? I mean,
Well, James Mason isn't even there. He gets arrested by the police.
Right.
Because he's like, that's not nice using real bullets or whatever.
So anyway, meanwhile, Leonard has Eve, and like he pushes her off, and Roger is trying to save her, and Leonard steps on his hand, and and then he is shot by the professor and his men, and like. It's kind of a nice sort of thing, like as he's like, "Come on, you can do it," and he says, "You can do it, Mrs. Thornwall," and
Thornhill.
Thornhill. Sorry, why did I keep saying Thornwall?
And actually,
Because that's the guy from Rear Window.
Eva, she actually like kind of scraped herself and like really hurt herself on set, and like they just moved. They put it as like part of the. They were just like, "Oh, you're bleeding from your elbow or whatever." Like, let's keep it in. That looks real.
Yeah, it's great because it is right. But they are now a married couple, and they go.
Yeah, it's like a train. He
train
pulls
car
her
thing.
like it cuts from him pulling her up off of the falling from the statue to pulling her up into the bunk bed on a train.
Yep.
It's an interesting transition. I'm not sure if it's 100% successful, but it's a good idea. Anyway.
But you got to figure that was basically he proposed to her, and they're gonna head
while
back
they
to
were
New York
while they were hanging, and he says, but I like she asks like, what happened to the other two marriages, and he says that his life wasn't exciting enough for them.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I guess you kind of forget, or at least you should try to keep it in your mind. Like he's not this secret agent. He's a regular guy, and that was the whole point of this
movie. Regular guy.
Yeah. And that's the end. They literally just say the end as
as the train goes into the tunnel.
Oh,
hey.
A little more sexual innuendo there. Yeah, and that is North by Northwest. There we go. There you have it.
There you have it. I will do a quick knowledge drop, just
Please.
reverting back to the when we're on the Mount Rushmore heads, and Hitchcock really wanted to have Cary Grant be in Lincoln's nose and have a sneezing fit.
Wait, did we talk about this before the show or during it?
It was during.
Oh,
but,
okay.
We glossed. I mean, we touched.
We glossed.
Yeah, we glossed.
Very well.
I mean, it was something he had an idea when they were in the screenwriting phase, but did he actually really want Cary Grant to do it? I didn't hear that.
Well, that was something that the park officials wouldn't let him do. But so they said that the Man in Lincoln's Nose was a working title, a gag title.
I mean,
I can at least add that little snippet to something to revisit it.
Yeah.
P.S. Postscript.
I did kind of just speed over that. I mean, like the scene on the faces, like at Mount Rushmore, it's pretty fun. Like they're kind of falling a little bit, and a lot of like
Think of how thrilling
dangling.
that was to see. And
right, if you were in 1959, you had never seen a movie with that much scope, probably. So it's pretty cool. I can't.
Or a tiny razor.
That's right. You've never seen a tiny razor or a giant mountain.
I was thinking of Scope mouthwash.
Oh yeah, that's. What do we think of North by Northwest?
I never go first, so I'll go first. I love it.
Right.
I'm gonna give it an A, or maybe even an A+. I've watched this movie. I've watched this movie like 4 times in the last month. I've enjoyed it so much.
Nice.
I like the intrigue. I like the humor. I like the main characters. I just like everything about it. Top marks in my book. That's all I gotta say.
Oh wow! All right, very well. Who wants? That's Clay. Would you like? You never go last. Do you want me to get? You want to go last?
Whatever, man. You just you said that I could go last and then took it away. Right?
No, I wasn't. I was asking you. Do you want to go last?
I'll go last then,
right.
if you're offering it. But if you're not offering it, then fucking I'll go next.
I'll just go. I agree. The humor was what really surprised me in this one. Actually, I don't know why, but I mean Hitchcock was a funny guy, and a lot of there was some playfulness.
He originally wanted to do a screwball comedy with Cary Grant at one point, and Cary Grant was like, "I'm tired of doing those. I want to do something different." So.
I mean, it's got everything that a James Bond movie would have, except this guy's not James Bond. He's just a dude, but he does it very believably. Yeah,
it was a good thing they didn't cast James Bond to play Roger Thornhill.
I know. It would have been too obvious. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like, the first James Bond movie people think.
Well, From Russia with Love basically lifted the crop dusting scene, but they just substituted a helicopter.
A helicopter,
instead.
right. I feel like probably a lot of people lifted the crop dusting scene. And probably a lot of the other things.
That's the one scene we didn't lift in Durst and the Firestarter.
We didn't do a lot of the classics. It's funny to me, I guess. This is a quick side note, but when we worked in the video store, we had a classics section, right? Which was basically old movies, or what I would have determined as old movies back in the 90s, like movies like this. This is 1959. But now, I mean, what would you consider a classic? Like something from the 80s or something, you know what I mean? Or something from the 90s? I don't know. But the word gets tossed around a lot as far as classics. But, but in reality, when I think of classics, I think of movies from this era.
Yeah, me too.
This is one of them. This is why you steal from the best. People lift stuff from this movie because it's good. I would have to say I would give it an A as well.
All right.
There's not. I mean, we point out funny little things, but for the most part, it's great, and I would watch this again and again.
And again.
And again.
And again. Watch it again. And again. And again.
Anyways, what do you say, Clay?
Okay. So here we are.
Do you want to go next, or do you want to start?
Or do you want to go last?
Kidding. Yeah.
I'll just keep mine short then. Bye. That's it.
Oh, I didn't even hear what you said. It was so short.
I'll just keep mine short.
Than,
Bye.
Oh,
short on the West Street.
I was going to say it was shorter than Kaplan.
Yeah, and it had more dandruff.
or the porter that was 2 feet shorter than Cary Grant that got his clothes stolen from him. He's out there in his skivvies, whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're here at the Director's Series, the first of its kind on the League Podcast feed, which is nice. John had another great idea that I'm just trying
to add a little, a touch of class and a little culture into you guys' lives.
Yeah, because we mostly do podcasts about ball bag jokes and so but yeah. So anyways, one thing that I was trying to smatter in about anything I was bringing to the table in this edition of the podcast was like production, but mostly just because I love when a movie really looks perfect. Like every frame of this movie is a painting like that. You know, there's like a YouTube channel named that or something. Like everything is so beautiful in this, whether it's a matte painting, but if you have a matte painting that's
by Matt.
Yeah.
Yep.
A matte painting that's highly skilled, matched with like the level that they're operating here is, I mean, it's Hitchcock and Kubrick, like think of like literally everything. And yeah, like there's this kind of thing we touched on about letting some imperfection show through, but perhaps intentional. But I just love the way this thing was shot, like the cameras they used and everything. I'm not even like really that versed and can't explain why I love it, but it just like when I watch like a Wes Anderson movie, I'm like, I just love the way this thing looks. Like this is like just so beautiful in the time that it's set in and the old cars and everything like that. Like I mostly am giving it an A, and so I'm with the league on this, so it's getting an A across the board. But I'm mostly giving it an A. Yeah, the story is great, and it's like proto James Bond or however you want to call it with that. But I love the way this movie looks, and that goes a lot toward weighting my grade. I just love everything about how the fashion, everything about it. So good, beautiful film.
It definitely is, and I actually feel kind of bad. I didn't do a lot of research. You guys got me on that one, so I'll have to step it up next time because I was the guy who went to film school, for Christ's sakes. I should probably know some of this stuff, but
well, you walked us through the scene by scene, that's not really something I want to do. So,
Okay. Color commentary.
So you do your part, you know what I mean? But I like just kind of wanted to go deep into like, how is this movie made? Like, how did they even film Mount Rushmore? Like what? And I'm kind of having, what is it, like the Mandela effect when you remember something that is true or not? Like
that's not true.
Not true. Yeah.
That's not true. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like this is an obvious thing that you guys are going to be like, oh, clay, or oh, clay. But something about Cary Grant's like suit changed color, but then I was looking that up and it didn't. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do, because sometimes it looks a little more blue, sometimes it looks a little more gray.
Or green.
I have a suit that does that. Depending on the lighting, it looks more blue or more gray. But yeah, this is like the most famous suit in film history, apparently. So,
well, after it's sponged.
Well, yeah, I mean, so maybe that was the problem. They did a little too good of a job on the sponging. It changed the color.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
They sponged the blue right off.
One of those nerdy like things about like the thing I mentioned with the pencil was like after the plane is exploded, somebody like drew a big arrow. It was like, why would there be a big shadow when this plane just exploded next to the car? It's like, get a life. Okay?
I know. You could just go and fix those stuff in the computer back then. So just relax, you know.
And you know what?
I hate when
you had film too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like.
I hate when
I didn't
people
know it was a
just
miniature.
pick apart stuff. Why don't you just enjoy it? You know, enjoy what's there. I mean, I'll goof on stuff too, but it's not ruining it for me. You know,
right? We
most of the time I see that stuff and I'm like, how did you even notice that? You know what I mean? Like, aren't you watching the movie? Like, why are you looking at that particular thing?
A lot of these movies get, people analyze Hitchcock to death. And, well, not literally. I mean, I know he died, but that wasn't what killed him.
Yeah, he wasn't killed by overanalyzing.
But, I knew a professor when I worked at my last job who was a Hitchcock's aficionado, and he actually did a director's commentary. Well, not a director's commentary. He did a commentary on a a Rear Window, like a release of Rear Window, like a DVD. So
Oh, nice.
it was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, like these things get analyzed a lot, and so yeah, people watch them and watch them and watch them, and they see these things. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to. Yeah, we point out like, boy, they got to Mount Rushmore really quick, or like.
Yeah, well, I was
We're not
willing
like
to go
making
with it
fun of it.
because
We're just like,
yeah,
right.
I was caught up in the story and in the film, and that was, and it didn't bother me that Mount Rushmore was 50 feet from his house and that they had a landing strip right there too. None of that bothers
Yeah.
me. I was just like, I'm going with it. I'm in. I'm in here. I'm on board.
Sort of in my head, I didn't even think of that at all. Like, I think of it as like on Her Majesty's Secret Service, like that's where Blofeld is. He's in that ski chalet up on the top of the mountain. It's like it has to be in a dramatic place like that. It just has to be there.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
Yep.
Just there.
It's just
That's
there.
where all the big action is going to be. Is going to be right there and close by. So that's the way I look at it.
And like we said, you have to sort of put yourself back in that era. We've seen a lot of shit since 1959, but back then you were probably like, wow, this movie is so intriguing. This is a regular guy
horny.
going around doing well.
Yeah, they pushed the horniness pretty
They
bad,
do
pretty
push the.
hard
You're right.
for late 50s. You know what I
they
mean?
definitely did. We should. Like I said, I think it's more fun that way. Like a lot of things they did back then too. Like food was substituted for sex in movies a lot, and like, anytime they could get around it, but would still kind of tell you like, oh, these people are gonna have sex. Like they did it, and it was fun. So
yeah, playful banter, playful horny banter.
Oh yeah,
people did sex back then too.
They had to, because here we are.
Right,
thanks to all those people having sex back then. That led to
right.
Thanks
to you, people.
and we
all
give
right.
it an A across the board. So,
I know. Look at us. This is
doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't.
It happened recently.
Did it?
Yeah, we get the mass device.
Oh,
well,
look at
all
us.
right.
That's like 2 in a row.
Yeah.
Wow. The mass device is, I mean, it's kind of on a different level than Northwest. But
yeah, but this is like it's still our grade. You know what I mean? Just because it's like science class, history class, English class. Mass device is science.
Mass device is an elective.
This is history.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's our enjoyment. That's all that matters.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I was thinking about if that was going to factor into the grading at all, but it's basically like you see a James Bond movie, or you see a Hitchcock movie, you see a Kubrick movie, or you see a Star Trek movie. It's going to get a letter grade, no matter how you feel about it.
Sure. Sometimes we'll give something an ironic A or whatever, but this, sometimes it's just a good movie. How do you enjoyed it? So there we go. And then we all enjoyed it. So yes, I think that's about all we got. Thanks for listening. Check us out, YouTube and LeaguePodcast.com and Spotify and Apple and wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a review and a like and a subscribe and all that stuff that people do to these things. So check us out. Thanks for listening.
Join our Patreon page.
Yeah. Use somebody else's podcast code.
That's right. All right. Blue Chew / Conan or whatever. Just you get your discount.
Wony.
County.
All
right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Adios.
Later.
What I mean is, the moment I meet an attractive woman, I have to start pretending I've no desire to make love to her.
What makes you think you have to conceal it?
She might find the idea objectionable.
Then again, she might not.